Welcome to the Insightful Player Podcast with your host, Chrissy Carew. In each episode, Chrissy interviews NFL players and other professional athletes to help transform our culture to be inclusive, kinder, and more loving. We hope to turn everyone into insightful players in their own lives. Chrissy is also the author of the book Insightful Player, featuring over a dozen stories where football pros lead a bold movement of hope. You can learn more about her book, Chrissy's coaching programs, and more episodes of the show at www.theinsightfulplayer.com. You can also watch other episodes on YouTube and listen through all the major podcast platforms. Now, here's the host of Insightful Player, Chrissy Carew.
Welcome back to the Insightful Player podcast. I am so excited about a very special guest we have on today, Jason Brown. He's a retired NFL champ. He's a self-taught farmer, you believe it, philanthropist, author, motivational Christian speaker, and a minister. He's amazing. He's very dear to my heart. You know, he's very courageous and loving soul, and he's a very good man. And he and his beautiful wife, Tay, have 8 wonderful children. And they all dedicated their life to God. And we're going to have a 2-part series because Jason has so much to share with you. And I'll give you a little hint. He gave up his gazillion dollars from the NFL to answer a calling from God to start a farm, which he had no experience in. And he's doing beautifully with it. And we're going to save that for next week. So welcome, Jason.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
It's great to have you. It's so great to have you. So today we're going to talk more about Jason's background when he was a kid leading up to getting into the NFL. And I think you'll really enjoy his story. Number one, you were someone that was so disciplined. And I remember you telling me the story of when you're even in elementary school, that you were so committed to, studying and doing well, that you had this wonderful little method to keep you going when you were doing all that homework. You had those little reports. Can you share that with everybody?
So I had to learn self-motivation, self-discipline, even at a young age. And when I got home from school, if I had, my 4 different subjects, math, science, English, social studies, I would, if I didn't have any candy, that was the best, treat. But even if I, made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I would slice it up into 4 squares. And after I finished my math, I'd eat a quarter of the sandwich. After I finished my English, I'd eat a quarter of the sandwich until, guess what? I'm finished, and it was all gone.
It's amazing. That's amazing. And you did it with Skittles too, I remember.
Skittles, that was my favorite, definitely. Anything, excuse me, but anything sweet, that you had around, candy, of course, that's a huge incentive, to make sure that you're gonna work hard, but you're gonna reward yourself at the same time.
Right, and you had, you were so disciplined at such a young age as a little boy, and you had a grandfather that really inspired you. And I know you didn't want to let him down. Can you share your story about your beautiful grandfather, Jasper Brown?
Yes, ma'am. So my grandfather, Jasper Brown, he was a trailblazer here in the state of North Carolina. He was a farmer, himself, but yet he knew that he did not want his children, to have to work as hard as he did, growing up. And so he knew that education was going to help his children to excel. And his children meaning, my father and my aunts and uncles. But yet at the time, the schools here in North Carolina, as well as all across the country, they were still very much so segregated. And so he filed a petition, with the local school board. And this was at a time where there was a lot of pushback, a lot of, racism. He received, countless death threats. even the KKK, they came outside of their farm and hung a noose in the tree. And that stayed up in the tree for not just months, but more than a year. And
Oh,
everyone knew that was a sign of threat and intimidation, to my grandfather Jasper Brown. And guess what? He believed in an education for his children being so important that he wasn't even going to allow that to hurt him. Even the day that the schools finally were integrated, that's when they finally made a huge attempt to take his life.
that's amazing. And he had a lot to do with integrating those schools. He went up against the board and won, right?
Yes, ma'am. It was a long battle with the school board, and so they were rejected and denied multiple times, year after year. And this was right after the success of 1957 with the Brown versus Board of Education in Topeka, Kansas. Well, after they had their success there, that didn't mean that all the remainder states in the country opened up. And so they filed a petition with the school board, throughout the late 50s, even until the early 60s, until the schools were finally, integrated in 1963.
That's amazing. And your mom wrote a wonderful book called Dead End Road. I don't know if everybody can see this, Deborah Brown. And I could not put it down. It's amazing. I highly recommend it. For these times that we're in right now, I think it's a perfect time to read this book. And you can get it on Amazon. Don't you think it's a perfect time to read this book with what's going on in our world right now?
So it just speaks to your faith and your perseverance, and knowing that you know what, look, there's going to be hard times, that there's going to be dark times, but you have to allow yourself to be that light that's going to shine in the darkness, and not operate in fear. And so operating in fear, if my grandfather had done that, then of course his children would not have received a better education.
That's so true. Again, everybody, I highly recommend this book. It's really a page turner. I could not put it down. Dead End Road by Deborah Brown, Jason's beautiful mother. And that's what's happening today. People are making decisions based on fear and that versus love. And that's why we're having all this crazy turmoil, for sure. But you didn't have it easy growing up, like in junior high and high school. The kids were really mean to you and they called you fat. But you didn't let that derail you. I mean, where did you get that inner strength as a kid? I mean, gosh, it's so hard to be, in middle school and high school, but, just so wanting to be liked and accepted. And can you share that story with us, please?
So you know what? There's a lot of kids that go through the blues. Middle school and especially high school, it can be very intimidating. Kids can be, just downright mean. Okay. And I remember I was a chubby, fat kid. And not only that, I really, sought after my education. And so I was a nerd on top of that. So I had like 2 strikes against me. And so, I was an easy target for, a lot of other kids. And I said to myself, what can I do, to be a part of something, an organization or a team that, I can possibly, use some of their popularity, all right, and use some of their credibility. And so that's why I started to lean a little bit towards sports. And actually, my favorite sport is baseball. I tried out for the baseball team my 8th grade year. And guess what? I was cut from the team, all right? And it devastated me, all right? Like, that's my favorite sport, okay?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so the head coach at the time, Coach Hicks, he went on to be an assistant principal of the school where he was then. And guess what? After I had made it all the way to the pros in the NFL, I was invited back, to give a motivational speech, to the school. And Coach Hicks, who's now a principal of the school, he greeted me. And guess what? I still held that grudge for years, all right? And when he came to shake my hand, he said, "Hey, Jason Brown." And I shook his hand. I said, "Yeah, don't you remember when you cut me from the baseball team? Like, yeah, like 10 years ago." Like, and he and without flinching or batting an eye, you know what he said? "Yeah, it worked out for you, didn't it?" And I was like, "Yeah, like you're right." Like, and so you know what? That rejection and what I thought was failure, I used it as motivation, to work even harder when I continued to pursue football and track and field.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I'm glad did go full circle and go back and see him. Um, and also, when you got into high school, you really wanted to work out, and for some reason you weren't able to do it after school, but you had to do it during lunch. So you had to quickly eat your lunch and go into the weight room
Yeah.
and really work hard. And you got a little bit of guff from that. Can you share with us
Yes.
more about
So
that?
my freshman year in high school, they did not allow freshmen to take the weightlifting class, and I wanted to of course, trim some of this baby fat, off and lift weights so I could get stronger. And so the only time that I had was during my lunch break, and they gave us 30 minutes, for our lunch break. It wasn't a full hour, and so I would gobble my lunch down in 5 minutes. I'd run to the weight room, and that was just enough time to get in my core lifts. And I would try and get in my bench press, power clean, and squats. And to tell you the truth, I was strong, even at that young age. But yet, I remember there were some young ladies in that class that I was trying to impress, and I put 315 pounds on the bar. All right, and I went down, and I got stuck at the bottom, and everybody laughed at me. But guess what? I went home. I looked in the mirror, and I was just working on my technique. And I said, the next time I get underneath the bar, I'm going to squat 315, and that was my freshman year. And there's a lot of times in school where you have opportunities to waste time. You have a free period, or there's time to goof off. But guess what? I said I've got to use every second, every minute as an opportunity to invest in myself, to get better. And honestly, that 30 minutes that added up to 2.5 hours a week. That adds up to, yeah, like 10 hours over the course of a month. And it really does add up. And so you have to, you really have to maximize those few moments that you have to invest in yourself, because it's going to make all the difference in the long run.
Like, your work ethic exhausts me. Just hearing about it. I mean, I admire it so much. And even in high school, when you were playing football, right? You came home from school exhausted, right? And you had this regiment that you went through, and you ended up getting up in the morning at 3 o'clock or something like that. Can you share that story? It's unbelievable.
So when I started playing football, I practiced so hard and I gave everything that I had. I was so exhausted, even after every single practice, that by the time I showered and ate dinner and I got home, by the time it was 8 o'clock, I was so tired. I didn't feel like opening up my books and studying and doing my homework. And so honestly, I lay down and I'd go to bed by 9 o'clock at night, and without doing any of my homework. And so, there's a lot of, athletes out there that get a bad rap, being called a dumb jock. And the thing is, in my household, my mother was not going to allow that. And she had already told me, hey, if your grades slip even the slightest bit, you're not going to play any sports. And so I said to myself, all right, I've got to find time, to get all of this work done in my studies. And so I would set my alarm clock for 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 a.m. every single morning. And the first thing the first thing I would do is I would go into the bathroom and I would just throw cold water like all in my face. I just like drench my face with cold water in order to like shock me, to wake up. And then I'd go right back into my bedroom, sit down at my desk, and I would just start cranking out all of my homework. And if I was lucky enough, I would be finished in about possibly 2.5 hours by 5:30, and then that would give me an opportunity to lay back down and go to sleep and catch a quick 30-minute nap before I'd get right back up at 6 o'clock and head to school.
Oh my God, you should get an Academy Award for your work ethic in high school, when the rest of us are goofing off and having fun and getting in trouble. Here you are, so disciplined, and it really paid off. You got to go to college that you loved, and you did so well in school, and the kids came around, and you became popular, and they respected you, and grateful. You were really talented athlete, helping their teams win. And then when you got to college, it must have felt like being a small fish in a big pond after being such a big shot in high school. Is that how it felt?
Oh yeah. So, leaving from my hometown of Henderson, North Carolina, and then heading on to UNC Chapel Hill, an awesome Division I, school. Great in academics, great in athletics, awesome in social life as well. And it really was a culture, shock for me. And yeah, I did have a chip on my shoulder before. I thought I was the big man on campus. But when I got around all of those older, teammates that had been, working much longer and harder than I had, and your talent pool. So the higher that you go in sports, the level of competitiveness is just astronomically, through the roof. Because of course, every single one of those Division I schools, they're recruiting the best of the best all around the country. And so when I got there to college, yeah, I wasn't the biggest, I wasn't the fastest, and I was not the strongest anymore. But yet, it still came an opportunity for me to earn those rights and step up through the ranks.
And that work ethic from when you started in elementary school and all the way up through high school really paid off. And you had a tragedy when you were in college. Beautiful big brother, Lunsford, was in Iraq. He lost his life. That must have been so tough on you. I know you were very close. How did you get through all that, Jason?
Yeah, so Lunsford, he was 7 years older than me. The most awesome big brother in the whole wide world. And being 7 years older than me, he had also stepped into kind of like a father figure, role as well. And just, when we were younger, of course, he beat me up. He teased me, he'd haze me, like any, big brother would. But then he stepped into a role where he was just always encouraging me and building me up and just saying, hey, Jason, you're going to be a better man than me. You're going to make better grades than I did when I was in school. He said, look, I goofed off. I didn't make the best grades. He said, but look, you're going to stay focused. You're going to make mama proud. You're going to do what you need to do. And I was like, all right, big bro. And it's like one of those things where he's still like, yeah, like, you better do it. All right. Or else I'm going to beat you up. Like, so work hard, stay focused, do a good job in school. And, just always, just a word of encouragement. And the thing is, when I received word that he was slain in service, that was September 20th of 2003. And we had just finished playing Wisconsin. That was a road trip the day before. And we were back home. It was a Sunday morning when I received that news. And I tell you what, yeah, like nothing can ever prepare you. All right. Yeah, I have my faith that I try and lean back on, the foundation of my faith, that I try and, fall back on. But guess what? The rug was literally snatched from underneath me, because if someone that you love, that can be taken away from you, like just like that, I thought, what's the point of any of this? Okay, like, how is any of this even your reality? And I began to question literally everything around me. I thought about quitting the football team. I thought about dropping out of college. Okay, and one thing that kept me going was Lunsford's memory and Lunsford's legacy. And I just kept saying to myself, I can honor Lunsford by the life that I live. I can honor Lunsford's memory and his legacy, by being a good younger brother, and honoring those commitments that he challenged me to. And he challenged me, little bro, finish school, okay? Little bro, hey, give your best in football, all right? And make mama proud. And that's what kept me going, is, yeah, just still having that desire to make my big brother proud of me.
Yeah, and that's really touching. And can you just share with everybody the shirt you're wearing today?
Oh, yes. So this is our Memorial Balloon Festival that we've hosted the past 2 years at here at First Fruits Farm. And we have a huge, beautiful 1,000-acre farm. Many people have told us that this is the most beautiful farm in all of North Carolina. And the most beautiful part on the farm, it's a park area. And we were able to dedicate the park area in honor of Lunsford, and we're able to name it the Brown Memorial Park, the Lunsford Bernard Brown II Memorial Park. And it's very awesome. So we have an awesome memorial out there, and a huge flag, 6 by 10 feet, and it's waving through the air. It's very special.
Yes, and you have that balloon festival you've been doing for the past couple of years. You have so many people that come.
Yes, so tens of thousands of unique visitors, come over Memorial Weekend. We have 30 hot air balloons, awesome food, entertainment, games and rides, for the kids, as well as fireworks every night. And so that's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. But then Monday, on Memorial Day, that's a somber moment. We want everyone to remember, the reason for the weekend and Memorial Weekend. And yes, it just, for everyone to be able to grill out and eat hot dogs and hamburgers, but to honor those that served, and to honor those that gave the ultimate sacrifice.
Oh, that's so touching. And I apologize, my dogs were walking around. I just wanted to make sure. Yes, and Jason's in my book, Insightful Player. And one of your guiding principles, I have a guiding principle at the end of each player's stories, and one of yours is in honor of Lunsford. When you lose someone you love dearly, let that inspire you to keep things in perspective, make them proud. Every time I read that, I get chills, because I know how deep your love is for Lunsford, and how much you honor him every single day. It's wonderful, Jason. It's amazing. So, oh gosh. So here you are, you're playing in college, you have had a wonderful time, you met your beautiful wife, Tay, and then you get drafted. You get drafted. Were you surprised?
So the thing is, I wasn't surprised that I got drafted. I just wanted to make sure that I was going to the right team. And I was listening to that draft guru, Mel Kiper, and so many other people, and they were saying that Jason Brown, he's a first day guy. He's going to be drafted, and at least the at least the second or the third round. And I said to myself, God, you're in control. I know that I'm going to go to the place that's going to be the best for myself and for my family. And I didn't even watch the draft on the first day. Okay. And even when that disappointment, came that I was not selected in those first three rounds, I was okay with it. Honestly, I stayed at my parents' house. I went fishing, okay, and I just relaxed and did the most, least, stressful thing that I could possibly do, and that was just simply going fishing. And the next day on Sunday, um, stayed at home and just prayed about it. And sure enough, I received a phone call from Ozzie Newsome, who at the time he was the general manager with Baltimore Ravens, and it was the fourth round. He said, "Hey son, would you like to be a Raven?" He said, "We're up on the clock next," and I said, "Of course." And you know what? That was the most perfect team. I couldn't have gone to any place better. Um, and it's because Baltimore is right here on the East Coast, is right up the road, and that the drive from my home all the way up to Baltimore, it was a little bit more than 4 hours, and
Oh,
that's very doable, especially being married at such a young age, and having a long term, not long, but a long distance relationship. Just being closer to family was very important.
yes, I know that's so important to you. That's the top value, faith, family, and farm, right? um, but well, you have so many interesting stories, and you know how highly I think you're such a good man, and you're such an inspiration. And um, I'm so happy to have you on this podcast because you have so much to share. And next time we're going to get more into what happened, a little bit more about your career in the NFL. But everyone, he was the highest paid center in the whole NFL. And he let go of that to start a farm. And he listened to the word that God was whispering in his ears for a few years, right? And he's like, what? I don't know anything about farming. But he listened and he did it. And you won't believe the story. In fact, he has a great, great book that tells the whole story. It's a must read. Can you tell them about your book before we go?
I think I have a copy. Well, I thought I had a copy up there, but it's Centered: Trading Your Plans for a Life That Matters. And it's available on Amazon right now, all major book outlets. And it's a play on words because I played center in the NFL, and in college I was the first to touch the football on every single play. But now I'm centered in my faith. I'm centered in Christ, and now the focus is really there. But like I said, faith, family, and farming. It's I get so excited about what I'm able to do every single day. Being able to spend as much quality time with my family as possible, as well as working in a full-time food ministry and being able to give back in such a unique way. It's I really couldn't ask for anything more.
It's such an amazing story, and especially because you knew nothing about farming, and
Yeah.
and you ran into a lot of obstacles early on. And you have donated something like 1 million pounds of produce to the poor.
Yes, it's
That's
over a million
amazing.
pounds of food.
That's
Yes.
amazing. That is absolutely amazing. Well, thank you for the beautiful work you do, and I can't wait for next time so we can get more into it. And Jason has, I mean, read his story on my website too, or get the book. And he has some other guiding principles that I'd like to share with you. Discover your best way to motivate yourself and stick to it no matter what. If you don't feel like sticking to it, think of this story of Jason, and I think it will really help you. And then create a relationship with God to empower you and encourage you to make the right choices. Those are a couple of his guiding principles that he lives by. And anytime I think of you, I smile. And your book really helped my faith. So I just want that. So I hope everyone checks it out. It's at Amazon. We're going to have it in the show notes. And Jason, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Coach Chrissy.
All right,
Yeah.
we'll have you on soon. You'll have to answer my text. Let me know what dates good for you. Okay?
That's right. I sure will. And I look forward to part 2.
Okay, me too. Me too. And everybody, thank you for listening. You're just going to love Jason's second half of his story. It's incredible. All right, get out the popcorn. Okay, so we'll see you shortly. And thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. Till next time. Bye-bye.
The entire Insightful Player podcast initiative is dedicated to the late Tom Constantino.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Insightful Player podcast with your host, Chrissy Carew. Chrissy is also the author of the book Insightful Player, featuring over a dozen stories where football pros lead a bold movement of hope. You can learn more about her book, Chrissy's coaching programs, and more episodes of the show at www.theinsightfulplayer.com. We hope to turn everyone into insightful players in their own lives. You can also watch other episodes on YouTube and listen through all the major podcast platforms. Thank you for your comments, reviews, and sharing the show with others.